Hello and welcome to episode 73 of the Footy with Fletch podcast. I'm joined by former North Melbourne and Hawthorn AFL star Josh Gibson. Josh played 225 AFL games and kicked 5 goals. He's a 3-time Premiership player, 2-time Hawthorn Club Best and Fairest, and 1-time All-Australian. Hello Josh, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Oh, well, mate, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, you played your footy with Surrey Park and East Burwood early on. I also played my junior footy with East Burwood before I gave it up and sort of went into media-related things. How did you find your time at both of those clubs?
I grew up around that area and went to school pretty close by. So Surrey Park, Panthers, it was when I was back there. Oh no, it was before the Panthers. They were the D's when I first started there. And I played a couple of games there in the first year, and then had a lot of friends that were playing at East Burwood and had moved to the Rams and played the majority of my junior footy career at East Burwood and thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a fantastic club.
And then you played some footy with Port Melbourne as well. How did that come about for you?
Yeah, I where I lived, I was in the Oakley Chargers zone, and so I played my under 18 footy at Oakley, and they had a connection to Port Melbourne in the VFL, and at that time it was appealing. Port was they were aligned with the Sydney Swans. They were the VFL team for the Swans, so. They had a rule that only 12 AFL guys would play in the team on the weekend. So there was the opportunity for 10 Port Melbourne guys to play, which was a bit different to other VFL sides. So I ended up choosing Port Melbourne as I thought it'd me the greatest chance of playing senior VFL footy.
And then how did you find out that North Melbourne had an interest in you?
I think it was probably only 1 year I was at when I was at Port that they were with the Swans, and then they moved to the Kangaroos. So Port was North Melbourne's VFL side. So the mindset was very simple. It was just go out and try and perform better than any other North Melbourne player that came back to play at the Borough. And make sure that I did a better job than the defenders and. Had a few good seasons there and was lucky enough to be invited down to do a pre-season with North, and they ended up taking me with their first pick in the rookie draft.
And what was it like to be selected by North Melbourne with pick 7 in the rookie draft and to finally achieve that opportunity to play AFL footy?
No, very special moment. Like I'd been to draft camp a few times. I got invited to the state screening when I was in year 12, so hadn't even started playing under 18s footy yet. I was bottom age, so you think there's going to be an opportunity, and then went back again the year I was in under 18s and missed out and did a pre-season with Richmond there, and was hoping to get on a rookie this spot that didn't take place, and then you go to the VFL and you sort of hope that your window hasn't closed and spend a few years there, and to finally get drafted was a really special feeling, a proud feeling, and obviously a lot of excitement, but at the same time you realize that you just rookie listed, and like that's probably the easiest part, getting drafted. Now it was about proving myself to obviously get onto a senior list and ultimately play senior AFL footy.
And then you mentioned your pre-season with Richmond. How did you find that opportunity?
No, it was great. Back then it was Danny Frawley was the coach. You had some fantastic players still at the club, the Matty Richardsons of the world and all that. And so very lucky to train there. It was a tough pre-season. I remember David Roden was great, took me under his wing, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. Obviously missed out. I think they took Kelvin Moore with their rookie spot instead of me, and that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But no, it was a great a little taste of what an AFL preseason feels like and what's ultimately required to be able to train at AFL level.
And then how did the opportunity to get on the senior list at North Melbourne come about for you?
Look, as I said, they just I did pre-season with them that year after having another good year in the VFL, and I just did the whole pre-season, and they said, look, we're looking at another defender, and you're a chance in the rookie draft, and they decided to take the chance, I guess.
And then, so you played as a tagger in your final year at North Melbourne. What did you make of being a tagger?
No, look, I'm not going to lie. I thought my best footy was playing down back. In that last year, Dean Laidley got sacked, who I had a great relationship with. Darren Crocker sort of stepped in to do the coaching, and at the time Anthony Rock was the midfield coach, and he had a really strong pushing on me trying to do that role. Not so sure it was so much Croc, it was probably Rock. Who wanted me to do that role. And I just, obviously you play any role you can for the side, but do I think that I was playing the best position that I could to help the team out? Probably not, but that's the way it goes, isn't it?
It is, and then you decided to inform North Melbourne that you wanted to be traded to Hawthorn in September 2009. When did you start to explore the market for a potential trade to the Hawks?
It was around the time that Dean left, and then I was asking for I was out of contract that year. I was asking for another contract, and we were, I guess North were fixed on their price, and we thought I was worth a little bit more, and we had a little bit of a standoff, and so ultimately, I wasn't signed during the season, and as the season went on, I was Hawthorn sort of reached out to my party, and I think if you look at their position. I'd played well in the finals against them in '07, playing on Bud, and then in '08, obviously they won the flag, but unfortunately Crody hurt his ankle really badly in that game, and then in 2009 wasn't really playing any senior footy, so they were obviously on the lookout for someone that they felt could help strengthen up their back end, and based on some of my performances, I guess they saw some value in trying to get me across.
And what was it like when you did finally make the move to the Hawks?
Oh, like it was firstly to be able to play for the club you barrack for as a kid, it's a dream. When you want to play AFL footy, you don't care where you play, but ultimately in the end, when it's all said and done, and you look back now and you say that you played for the team you barrack for is great. I think rocking up there, at that stage, Hawthorn had such a experienced list, like you were, and a list full of so much talent. You go to work every day and you got the likes of Buddy and Ruffy to play on, and you've got the Hodges and the Mitchells and the Lewises, Sully back then running around in the midfield. Yeah, it was a quality stacked lineup, and and then on top of that you had a coach like Alistair Clarkson. So yeah, walking in there is definitely daunting. It's sort of, you go through primary school and you get to the top of the tree and you feel like you know everything that's going on. And then the next year you're back in year seven at a new school and don't know where to stand on the first day. And I feel like that's probably what it's like walking into a footy club for the first time.
And what was it like to be coached by Alistair Clarkson?
Like he's a freak coach. He's a small hand. He's one of a small handful that have really had a significant impact and changed the way footy's played over time. And he was always striving to innovate. He always gave so much respect to his players, and ultimately, it made you want to go to war for him. And I loved playing for him, and no doubt he got the best out of me. And yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Hawthorn and having Clarko as my coach.
And in your first season at the Hawks, you had a bit of an injury-interrupted season, suffering a hamstring injury. You then went on to play 12 games. What was it like to deal with a hamstring issue in your first year at the club?
No, it was very frustrating. early on. I'd also had a couple of off-field incidents that happened towards the end of pre-season or early on at the start of the year. And you look forward to just putting them behind you and be like, right, I just want to get on the field and let my footy do the talking and get past that. And I think it was round three. It was against the Doggies that game that Jordan Lewis had that horrific KO with Jared Harbrow that I did the hammy. And it's very frustrating that you've got to a club, you want to impress, you want to show your teammates, everyone that they've made the right decision and the club in selecting me. You want to show the fans what you can do, and to be sidelined at round three for a good 10 weeks or so, a bit longer was very tough.
And then in 2012, the Hawks were 5-4 at one stage before they won the next 8 games by an average winning margin of 81 points. Do you remember what that run was like?
No, so what was that? That was 2012, was it?
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, look, I think in 2011 we played some really good footy. And we lost that prelim to Collingwood. And we thought that our footy wasn't that far off. So, in 2012 to have that start, I guess was a little bit upsetting because we knew we had all the components. And I think like good coaches and good coaching staff do, and ultimately experienced players, you break it down and see what little deficiencies are. And we worked on a few things. And as you said, to be able to go out on a run and not just win games of footy, but beating sides by 12, 13 goals, you know, was pretty phenomenal. And like I think you sort of forget about those things when you're a player, like people always bring up the three peats and these things, you think about the premierships, but you forget about sometimes the runs and the domination in home and away games, and how big they were.
And other than the premierships, because they're probably the main highlight, do you have any other highlights from your time in footy, Josh?
Oh, look, like milestone games, not only for yourself but for your teammates, are huge. That there's different times through whether it's coming back from an injury or like games where some of the best games you're playing and a prelims, and when you add in some of those other factors like the Kennett curse and the ability to, who you need to beat to make a prelim. I'm thinking about that Geelong prelim in 2013, or the final series in 2015 when you travel to Perth twice and no one says you can do that. So, look, there are definitely a lot of other games you remember, and funny enough, a lot of them are the ones that played pivotal moments in getting you to that last Saturday in September.
So you played in 4 grand finals in a row, the 2012 grand final loss to Sydney. Out of the other three that you won, was there a particular premiership that you thoroughly enjoyed? And do you have a favourite flag?
Oh, I think, like they're all very special. I think 13, the first one, always holds a dear spot in your heart. Um, for the reasons that I mentioned, 2011 we were so close. 2012 you go out on that tear. I think we ended up being the minor premiers that year. Finished on top of the ladder, go into the finals series, the team to beat. That last Saturday in September, probably win every stat that day except the scoreboard, and you lose, and you know how hard it is to make grand finals. At that stage, what I'd been playing for. So what did I start? 20. I can't even remember now, but it was like 7 years or something. You've been in the system, and you start realizing how hard it is to make grand finals, and whether you're going to get that opportunity again. So then to back it up in 13 and get back there the year after, which is tough to do, and then ultimately finally win one. I think that's why 13 holds a pretty special place in my heart.
And in 2013 as well, you also won the Hawthorn Best and Fairest Award. What was it like to win a maiden Best and Fairest Award in a premiership season?
Yeah, look, it's I always tried to pride myself on really being a team player, and I think I was, runner up in 11, and had some injuries in 2012, missed part of that year, and I guess my focus always was to be out there for as many games as I could and just contribute, and 13 was it's a nice year to win the best and fairest, and not because it's a premiership year because it sounds good, but I think, winning the team success first is what we all play for. And like if I was to walk away and just had individual best and fairest and no premierships, you trade them in a heartbeat. So being able to celebrate a premiership win with having some individual success is great. And the reality is when you're a defender, you might win the best and fairest, excuse me. You might win the best and fairest, but like you defend as a unit, and there's plenty of guys that help you have success on game day. So, I look at those awards and I sort of credit them to the whole back line, and it's an award that we won.
And as a former defender, do you think the defenders need their own award? Because obviously the forwards have the Coleman, the Brownlow medal is sort of the midfielders award nowadays. Do you think that defenders should have an individual award?
Oh, like I don't really think about it too much. I guess what I've always told myself is defense wins premierships, and if you got a good defense, then you'll probably end up having some solid team success, and that trumps any of those individual awards. And I think that, like we spoke about, a best and fairest is voted by your coaches, and like internally we also had a Lee Matthews Award, which was the Lethal Award, which is voted by players, and to win that, I would think I won that in 2011. They're the ones you care about because they're where you're being graded from within. So like I'm not disrespecting Brownlow medals or anything like that, but when you're getting judged from the people inside your club, and they rate and value what you're doing, I think that sits well enough for me.
And in 2014, you suffered a bit of a strange injury. You missed 10 weeks of footy with a pectoral tear. What was that like to deal with?
Yeah, very frustrating. We were playing the Swans Friday night, went to body sport tip it and just hit him from behind, and felt the pec. Well, I just didn't really know that it popped, and I was actually flying out to America in the morning because partner at the time was living overseas, and had I was planning on going there and coming back and playing the next week, and flying overseas with a torn pec. Now hindsight wasn't the greatest thing. Wish we'd picked it up before I jumped on the plane, but yeah, look, frustrating because we're playing such good footy, and as I said, I really hated missing games, and I'm not a good person to be around when I'm injured because I just want to be playing. So, yeah, like a weird injury to do. Obviously, rehabbing it and those things, you really get nervous. You're going to tear it again at some stage, but it's all good now, and hasn't given me any trouble since. Thank God.
Has there been anything like body-wise post-football that you've sort of struggled with? Because we hear a lot of ex-footballers talking about pain that they've got post-football.
Oh, look, I've had a fair bit of shoulder surgery on my left shoulder, so I can't really throw a tennis ball or anything anymore because I can't get any range of movement, being left-handed. But no, lucky I came away with knees are not too bad. Still able to exercise. Had some pretty banged up groins at the end of my career, but they're all better now, and probably a bit of lower back pain, but no different to anyone, I guess, that spends time in the gym. So I've been pretty lucky. I probably haven't been too damaged coming out of my career.
And then the 2015 grand final, you played West Coast in the grand final. It was on the first day or the first Saturday in October. It was a very hot grand final, 31 degrees against the Eagles. What do you remember from those conditions on grand final day?
Yeah, it was stinking hot. Yeah. What's the record? What was the record? I don't even know. Was that the record that what was the do you know what it was versus Swans, the Heat? No.
I think that was the hottest grand final on record. The
Yeah.
previous one, I think from memory, was 1987.
Yeah, right. I remember, yeah, because what year was that? It was 20, our one was 15, wasn't it? I'm just
Yeah.
trying to catch up. Yeah. So 2015, like it was, you came in at quarter time and it was just like, oof, can't believe we've still got another three quarters to play. But we're Andrew Russell, our fitness coach, he'd always prep us for hot Septembers. And, like when we knew we'd be playing finals, we started doing, a lot of, sauna sessions and ice baths, and we'd be in our the steam room and those type of things, like getting yourself ready and prepared for if it's hot in September. So I felt like we always trained and got ourselves ready and prepped for a hot September, and finally that one came around, and I think it held us in good stead, and probably the scoreboard agrees with us.
And you mentioned Andrew Russell. What sort of impact did he have on your playing career?
Oh, look, he's the ultimate professional. Between you've got the coaching department at Hawthorn, which is so important, and then you've got Andrew Russell with his strength and conditioning, and he was more than that. He was, yes, he's a high performance coach, but his ability to keep players in the right mindset and all of that stuff was genius as well, and um, had a huge impact on me. He was always someone you could turn to and wanting to, work about how to get the mind right, or had a few down weeks and needed to get yourself back in the system, or, back in the mindset, sorry, to be successful. And like he was pivotal for our playing group. He was great for the education of young guys. His ability to really set a program and then and fast track players on understanding what AFL footy is about. Was second to none, and that's why he's been so successful during his career in the AFL with multiple clubs.
And in 2016, the first match against the West Coast Eagles, you had 44 disposals, which at the time was an equal club record. What do you remember from that performance?
I guess you always got the grand final rematch. Especially I think that West Coast would have been pretty disappointed with the outcome of that game. So, they're going to be coming back red hot to try and set, to make an example and show that that's not what they stand for, I guess. So we were going in really hot, wanting to play well in that game, and mate, like sometimes the ball just follows you. It did that day. I remember it was like quarter time or something. I think I was like 17 possessions. I don't even know. It was something high at quarter time or half time. I just remember coming in and I was like, Jesus Christ, what's happened there? And as it even turns out, I think I kicked a goal in the last quarter of that game. So, yeah, a very rare one for a defender, but I'll take it.
And you were also regarded and known for your spoiling. How did that sort of all come about for you?
Um, I just, I think it was always playing on those big forwards back in the day. Um, there used to be a lot of one-on-one contests, so um, the likes of Favolas, Jonathan Browns, these big forwards, Barry Halls, being one-on-one with them inside the forward 50, it was just about halving a contest any way you could, and that was sort of how I played, and Clarko always really liked my ability to have a big fist and spoil a contest, sorry, and saw that as like um, our first part of offense. So I just put a big price on, like if I can bring the ball to ground, be predictable to my teammates, they know that when I go to a contest, I'm going to be trying to clear the area. Then it was like a first line of offense, and it sort of became my one wood, and when you got a one wood, you just got to keep working on it and make it the best thing about your game.
Well, it certainly was a great attribute, that's for sure. And 2017 was your final season. You injured your groin, which saw you sidelined from round 12 until the end of the season. How hard was that injury to deal with?
Yeah, it was. Look, I had a really good start to preseason that year. I was some of the, I was putting up some fitness records that I hadn't done for a very, very long time, and everything was looking great. I did have these chunky groins, and they just started to get worse. And you sort of knew that that was probably going to be my last year, and once they went like that, it was definite. And it was really the last after round 12. It was just about enjoying the back half of my time at the club. Because then wouldn't be going past that year, and just enjoying being there, training every day, doing all that type of stuff, being around the group, help educating some young kids, bettering themselves, and yeah, just look back on my journey and be satisfied, and know that I got everything out of my body, and like I was literally falling to the finish line.
How hard was that to sort of come to terms with, given the fact that your career was sort of ended by those injuries, I guess?
Yeah, look, I don't really dwell on it. I think that um, everyone's body's different, and I know that I gave everything I could to be there every single day. My body had held on for a lot of other things to allow me to play in premierships and all those type of things. So if I was going to fall over at the end, um, I was cool with that. I had no regrets. Not just because we'd won premierships, but I always known, and maybe it was to my detriment that I went and trained at 100% all the time, and I didn't leave any stone unturned. So when it was time to hang up the boots, I had no what ifs or regrets. I knew that the fuel tank was on empty, and that was because I'd used it all, um, doing everything I could to get the best out of myself.
And a couple of listener questions. One person has sent in and they want to know, who is your favourite current Hawks player?
Oh, favorite current Hawks player. Um, I look at Will Day. He's going to be an absolute freak. No, it's hard to have one. I love Will Day. Um, Obviously, you've got the bloke that wears my number, Sis. He's so much better at intercept marking than me. So I like the way that he does it across back, and Cash and Deer. Like if I was at the game the other night, he's going to be a freak talent. I look at Darcy from the Doggies and look at his dexterity and how good he is below his knees, and I think Deer can be another one like that, of these tall forwards that have got some freakish talent. So I've given you three blokes, but I'm sorry.
No, all good. And another listener wants to know, why did you get rid of your afro?
Yeah. Um, we used to play we used to play Kangalotto at North Melbourne. So, at the Keno balls, you draw them out, and everyone would put in money. And I think the last ball out would take home $500. In amongst it was a head shave ball. Or maybe it was more than 500 you took home. Sorry, a few thousand. But in there was a head shave ball. And if your number came out after that, you have to shave your head. And if you didn't want to shave it, it was like $500. And I remember Jonathan Hay came out once, and obviously he could afford to not pay to shave his head. I was young, $500 was a lot of money, so I was just like, oh well. I came When my number came out after the head shave ball, I'm like, I better shave it because I can't afford to pay it, and that was it.
And then another listener wants to know, who was the grumpiest and most chilled out player that you got to play with during your journey?
No, Ruffy was pretty grumpy. He was always complaining about the program, what time we had to be there, or why they're keeping us so long. I don't think you can have a bloke that was chiller than Benny Stratton. He was a pretty chilled out dude, didn't let many things affect him, and I think everyone probably looked at Strats and said, I'd love to have a mindset like that, just be that chilled all the time.
And how did you find transitioning to life after footy?
Look, I was really looking forward to it. I had some interest, I tried different things while playing, and had some interest in some businesses. So, when footy finished, I sort of had something to walk straight into, which was good. I think when I had that horrific head injury when I was at North Melbourne, and I was 23, 24, and they're like, you might not play footy again. And it was a moment where I was like, shit, if I leave tomorrow, what am I going to do? And I think after that, I was like, right, you never know when the game can be taken away from you. So you've just got to be active in doing stuff. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed life after footy. I like doing something something different. I feel yes, you feel old at footy when you retire at 33, but the minute you step into the real world, you're now a pup again, really, in terms of your working career. So it's been enjoyable to, learn different skill sets, sorry, and apply myself in different ways. And there's some valuable lessons that I learned playing footy, which you can transition into your work and work life, and yes, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, haven't, obviously there's been times where you would have liked to still been able to kick the footy or play a couple of games here and there, but like those now, what am I, 7 years, 8 years past, those feelings are well and truly gone, mate.
And just finally as well, you're currently involved with Titanium Caravans. How did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, I used to have one of their vans. Go low, do a lot of love my horse sports and do a lot of horse riding and do a couple of sports there called camp drafting and take my vans away and the guys here liked the way that I went about business and they're always asking me to come across and get on board and then as things panned out just over a year ago the stars aligned and so they managed to get me over here and now the general manager and thoroughly enjoy it. Big business. We build 8 to 10 caravans a week, so it's a big enterprise with a lot of staff to look after and yeah, definitely keeps my cup full.
Well, thank you so much, Josh, for joining me today, and all the best of luck with your ventures outside of footy.
Thanks, Fletch. Appreciate it.